Hey guys, today we're gonna be watching The Backrooms by Kane Pixels. Hope you enjoy. He seems to have made it to the elevator.
Once again for your patience on this. It has been a stressful 15 hours for all of us here, and while he cannot currently be with us, Dr. Beck sends his apologies regarding the numerous inconveniences caused by our decision to keep you here overnight. Now, it appears that the situation has reached a point of some stability. We're still looking into a few things, but I feel that we can now properly address what occurred without running into speculation. What happened last night should not have happened. Not here, not with
That's always
us.
a good thing.
What occurred was a gross misunderstanding that was the result of some severe information mismanagement. Even now, I believe most of you still have an incomplete idea of what took place last night.
I do, that's for
Before
sure.
I fill you in, I need to address the fact that there has been information deliberately withheld from many of you on the project. Now, these choices were not made lightly and were done for only the best of reasons. However, I
Yeah,
believe
of
it must be
course.
clear that following the events of last night, it has been proven to us that that method of conducting ourselves was not
Withholding
viable.
information for the better of
So,
everyone.
I
Yeah,
approach you
sure.
now to correct this mistake and begin delivering the authentic order of events as we understand them. On the morning of March 1st, a team of 4 researchers was sent into the complex to conduct a routine layout analysis. George Levy, Marvin Lee, Ronald McCarthy, and Peter Tench. At around 12:25 p.m., the group realized that they had lost track of Tench while traversing a previously accessed branch of hallways. As you'll recall, this prompted an immediate withdrawal of response back to standard, followed by several days of significant search efforts. However, those ultimately yielded nothing, and as far as any of us were concerned, Tench had simply vanished, leaving no physical trace. Now, for obvious reasons, that wasn't something that we could disclose to the public, so roughly 2 weeks following his disappearance, our security team was forced to put together a more acceptable cause of death that would keep attention away from this institute and provide closure to the family. So that is all close to common knowledge, I presume. Not all of you were with us at the time of the incident, however, you're certainly aware of the effects it has had on our internal procedures over the past few months. Regardless, that was where Tench's involvement in this came to an end. Or, at least, that's what we assumed. Because on May 8th at approximately 5:30 p.m., a motion alert was sent out from the complex, which was closed off at the time. One of our senior engineers was sent down to assess the situation and discovered a male dressed in hazard gear who we were able to identify as Peter Tench. Immediately following this discovery, Tench was moved to a secure room on this floor where, over the following days, a select group of doctors were able to administer a panel of tests in order to determine what had happened to Peter in the 2 months he had been gone. Those tests yielded very little useful information. By all
2
measures, Peter
months.
appeared to be in excellent health. However, we were still provided one very useful tool in understanding how the situation unfolded from his perspective. Some of you may recall that on the day of his disappearance, Tench was his team's designated camera operator. Well, when we recovered him, he still had that camera in his possession, and in fact had documented the entire ordeal. The footage will be presented in its entirety later today. However, for the purpose of this discussion, I will only be highlighting key events. This is the hallway where Peter was last seen. They're not in view, but you can hear the others walking behind him. Now, as he approaches the branch on the right here, pay close attention to the audio.
Guys, can you hear this?
Yeah, we've seen this in an earlier one.
Hey!
Then they disappear.
Now, I'd like to save the discussion for afterwards, but what you just saw is what we believe to be the moment that instantaneously transported 2 months forward in time. Following that abrupt flash you just saw, Tench proceeds back out into the hallway in search of his team, but is without any indication of their presence. The next 30 or so minutes of the tape follow a fairly panicked Tench as he attempts to navigate his way back to the threshold. He does obviously find his way back. However, the threshold appears not as he knows it, but as it appeared on the date of May 8th. And this ties us back to the moment when we recovered him. So, to summarize, from his point of view, he had only been inside the complex for several hours. So to him, all of the new developments surrounding the threshold were completely foreign. Luckily, though, as I already mentioned, there were people available to manage the situation as it unfolded. And over the course of the following days, we were able to properly sit down with Peter and work with him to gain a collective understanding of what had happened. However, there was still the very significant fact that Mr. Tench was considered legally deceased as a result of the cover story, and reversing that would be no easy feat. He understood this and was willing to cooperate while we looked for a way to reintegrate him without raising suspicion. Unfortunately, though, that process ended up taking quite a bit longer than we had anticipated, and all the while Peter was sucked out here waiting idly by. We did our best to keep him engaged, but it is hard to combat the effects of prolonged sensory deprivation on the human brain, and as a result, Peter's mental state took a toll. Not to a degree that was outright concerning at first, but around the end of week 2, we noticed that he was starting to exhibit a number of behaviors common in patients diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia.
No,
We don't have
Peter.
reason to believe that Mr. Tench was afflicted with that condition. Whatever the case, while he didn't express it outright, from what we could gather, he appeared to have deluded himself into believing that he was still inside some sort of illusion created by the complex.
Oh,
and
no.
that we were secretly looking to do him harm. This all came to a head on the night of the 22nd, when, while Tench was finally about to be transferred to a temporary above-ground residence, he broke away from us and, using stolen credentials, forced his way back into the complex where he would go undiscovered until just last night, when he ambushed and violently attacked Team B in room 14C, leaving Dr. Bloom in critical condition.
But he was okay, right?
During the 2 or so days Tench spent in the complex, he let go of the idea that he could somehow escape through an alternate threshold, but still held on to the belief that all of us here were working to trap him in some way, despite our actions saying exactly the opposite. Immediately after firing a single shot from the Remington 870 to Dr. Bloom's side, Tench fled the scene and headed to the threshold outpost, where he would turn the weapon on several more of you while progressing into standard and through the lower offices. Given the abrupt and chaotic nature of the unfolding situation, it took our security team several moments longer than it ideally should have to figure out what was happening. But thankfully, while Tench
What
was
is happening?
accessing one of the empty labs next to storage, Dr. Maxwell was able to act quickly and managed to disarm him, accidentally discharging the weapon into the ceiling in the process, though. However, Tench still managed to avoid apprehension, fleeing into the maintenance wing and evading our security staff by taking the freight elevator to the surface. Now, this situation could have played out very badly, given the potential number of witnesses around the building at the time. But luckily for everyone involved, as far as we can tell, Tench was not noticed as he exited the property. Around 5 minutes later, our security team made it to the ground floor and began a thorough sweep in the direction of the hillside where cameras had last observed Tench. Now, there's no easy way to say this other than to just say it. I am terribly sorry to inform you all, but Mr. Tench was found deceased halfway down the hillside. The result of an extreme blow to the head.
No.
It appears that
Peter,
while he was running through
you had so much to live for.
anticipate a sudden dip in the ground. the circumstances, it was not something any of us could have anticipated or prevented. The tragedy of the entire situation undoubtedly remains, but Dr. Tench, regardless of how troubled he was in his final days, was a brilliant man who gave his all to this project. He would certainly not want us hindering it in his name. What we're doing here is so much bigger than any one person.
Yeah, he
It is the
fell
work of a
forward,
unified effort.
and surely he wouldn't want the project to stop.
That we hold on to the pre-established notion that Peter is and has been deceased. That is done, and there is nothing more to be extracted.
The phone. Can someone get the damn phone? I'll get it. Thank you. Thank you, Squirrel.
Market and non-market economies. Well, as I've said, that our negotiations in this area with the Soviets are just beginning. Commerce Secretary Peterson returned yesterday. 2 weeks.
The Soviets. As I was saying, it's always the USA or the Russian.
Very considerable progress was made. We're narrowing our differences, which have kept us from settling our Lend-Lease debt for 25 years. The good faith which the Soviets would demonstrate by settling the debt would set the stage
Hacking
for
Americans.
order, permitting Exim Bank credits for sales to the Soviets. And it would also open the way for a presidential request of the Congress that the United States
Overload. Not sure what's overloading, but it's overloading. Ivan Beck. That's like the, I guess, CEO or something. I don't know how you would call it.
Alright. Today is November 14th. It is a Tuesday.
It's Tuesday, isn't it?
Yeah. It is incredibly cold. Hopefully by the time you're watching this, we'll actually have a decent heating system down here. That'd be nice. Die of hypothermia. Oh, camera?
Police just dropped through in the bin right there. Make sure to get the red one, alright? Because the green one reads.
10-4.
This is before they set up all the cameras. Man, I swear it looks like that when you remove a tile. from the ceiling at my job.
There's no insulation on top, and I'm seeing a bunch on the floor above. There's ventilation as well. You see that? You see the vents?
Yeah, it goes around the back to the right.
Some of it's insulated, I think. I don't know. I'm not a vent guy. I don't know.
Not a vent guy.
No rust.
He's not a Amogus player.
Huh.
More than one floor, and I use that term loosely. We then attempted to cut power to the nearest fluorescent light fixture, a standard troffer. However, we were unable to isolate the power source, and the conduit remained live, despite the absence of any visible external power supply. The source of electrical current remains unknown at this time. Using an insulated toolkit, we carefully isolated the light fixture from its electrical conduit, extracted the troffer from the ceiling, and transported it back inside, back to standard for analysis.
So there's electricity coming from somewhere.
It was also taken with all exposed wiring safely secured afterwards in the ceiling. So
I wish that that hazard suit was a bit bigger in the emote.
By 1.14 meters, which is certainly not standard, but it's composed primarily of mineral fiber. It seems normal in composition, has a fissured texture with mild tegular edges. So just after initial analysis, the composition of the tile estimated is around 60% mineral wool, which is fibers of amorphous silicate, usually derived from, I think it's basalt or slag, around 20% expanded perlite, which is...
I guess the hazard suit is only for slim people.
Silicon dioxide and aluminium oxide, and the rest is a undefined
with
mixture
like
of,
no facial
silicate
structure.
material, some starch, latex polymers, and some organic fibers derived from plant materials. Recycled cellulose, really. But the light troffer housing is made of galvanized steel coated with a thin layer of zinc. Inside, the fluorescent bulbs are non-standard in proportion, most closely resembling T12 bulbs. So the 4 bulbs measure 1.2 meters in length with a diameter of 38.1 millimeters. We're extrapolating here at 51, but all the end wastes and the rest contain the following components. Phosphor coating, the calcium halophosphate for converting ultraviolet light to visible light, mercury vapor in a small quantity which facilitates the ultraviolet light emission, argon gas, and again this is all standard for these fluorescent bulbs. That's an inert gas that assists with regulating the current and really starting the bulbs, and they are connected via a G13 base, which is a standard 2-pin base with 13 millimeter spacing for electrical connection. So the wiring connected to the fixture is PVC insulated copper, which appears standard again. The prismatic diffuser over the bulbs is made of polymethyl methacrylate.
So it's kind of standard,
Again,
but at the same time it
commonly
isn't
used for
standard.
its light diffusion properties. I mean, it's what we have in the building here, very standard. But we also inspected the ballast, which is of the electromagnetic type. There's some variation in how they're being manufactured now. This one contains a laminated steel core and copper windings designed to operate at 60 hertz. So the ballast emits a prominent 120 hertz hum. This seems to be the case for the majority, if not all, of the lights in the complex that we've assessed thus far, mostly just through simple curing, but this is due to magnetostriction and core vibration. But the noise may be exacerbated by loose lamination plates or degradation of the insulating potting material over time. So it's definitely an indication that this has been running for a little bit. I mean, despite its age, the ballast is functional. Its large proportions suggest it was built for a non-standard space, not something you find in the majority of offices or most commercial spaces, though that's not something I'm too familiar with, truthfully.
But who built it?
Now,
who was
we
it?
did find, so material compositions all seem expected, or we didn't know what to expect here. They seem, everything we've looked at so far, again, This is rudimentary early testing, but everything seems pretty congruent with what you might expect from one of the troffer lights you could pull out of the ceiling in this building right here. So nothing too strange, but it's maybe
But
that maybe makes things even stranger. Because we look at these lights, and let me see.
yeah, that's the thing. What is weirder?
Several labels,
It being like standard or
were marked
it being
on
like
various
outlandish?
components of the troffer. So on the ballast, we found markings for mark it as a universal ballast, Type A, manufactured in 1975 with serial number A75234X. The troffer itself is stamped 3X432, and that was manufactured in 1973 in Reading, Pennsylvania, and it is UL listed. And the bulbs were manufactured by Sylvania, and they're marked F40SW, that's soft white, with no visible date information. It's left blank, but it is noted as made in the USA. So, I mean, though outdated in design, the fixture appears fully functional. The stable
USA.
operation of all light fixtures in the subdivision points to a continuous, potentially autonomous power source, which still remains unidentified. We're doing what we can. The materials used are durable with minimal visible wear, suggesting they were built for long-term, possibly indefinite use. So this concludes the initial findings. Further investigation is necessary to determine the source of power supplies.
But who built them? Thank you so much, guys, for watching the video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please leave a like, go subscribe, and follow my Twitch for even more content. See you next time. Bye bye.